For the past 3 nights, there's been a man in a black coat standing perfectly still across the street from my apartment. I wouldn't think much of it. Except tonight, he smiled at me, and I live on the 5th floor. It started 4 nights ago. I was in my small 1-bedroom apartment, scrolling on my phone, the TV playing quietly in the background. I live in a decent neighborhood, not upscale, but safe enough that I've never been too paranoid. My apartment's on the 5th floor, with a window overlooking the street. That night, I got up to refill my drink and glanced out the window. Down on the sidewalk across the street, directly under the flickering orange street lamp, was a man. He was tall, maybe 6 feet or more, wearing a long black coat. His head was slightly tilted down, so I couldn't see his face clearly. At first, I thought maybe he was just waiting for a ride-share or smoking a cigarette, but he wasn't moving. Not even a shift of weight, just standing there, staring in my direction. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he wasn't looking at me. Maybe there was something behind my building, but the way his head was angled, it felt wrong. Night 2. I had almost forgotten about him until the next night. Same time, around 11:30 p.m. I got up from my desk to stretch and instinctively glanced out the window. There he was again. Same spot, same black coat, same eerie stillness. Only this time I swear his head was tilted slightly further upward. I stood there for maybe a minute, just staring back. The street below was empty, except for him. Finally, I reached up and pulled my curtains shut. When I woke up the next morning, I convinced myself I had been overreacting. Maybe he was just some local who liked standing outside late at night. Still, I made a mental note to avoid walking alone after dark for a while. Night 3. This time, I wasn't even near the window when I saw him. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when my phone buzzed. My friend Emily had texted, "Are you okay?" I frowned and typed back, "Yeah? Why?" She sent a photo. It was taken from across the street from ground level. The picture was of my building, and in the center of my lit-up window, there I was, brushing my teeth. The timestamp was 11:36 p.m. Below her message, Emily had typed, "This guy just sent this to our group chat. Says he found it online. Do you know him?" My stomach dropped. I didn't recognize the username who posted it. No caption. Just my window. Me. I ran to the living room, yanked open the curtains. He was there. Still. Silent. Watching. By now, I was nervous every time the sun went down. I tried to tell myself not to look, but at 11:30 exactly, I gave in. And instantly wished I hadn't. He wasn't across the street anymore. He was standing in the alley directly below my window. Head tilted all the way back, looking straight at me. That's when I saw it, his smile. Wide, teeth bared, like he was enjoying this. I froze, backing slowly away from the window. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely lock the latch. I didn't sleep at all. Every sound from outside made my skin crawl. At 2:00 a.m. I heard something. A slow, steady tapping. Not from the door, from the glass. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and dialed 911. The operator's voice was calm, but my words came out in a panic. I explained there was a man outside my apartment, possibly dangerous. As I spoke, I dared to look toward the window. The tapping stopped. And then, a shadow moved across the inside of my curtains. I screamed and ran to the front door, throwing it open just as 2 officers came jogging down the hall. I was sobbing, trying to explain, pointing toward the window. They searched the apartment, every room, every corner, empty. The window was locked, no sign of forced entry. But here's the part that's kept me awake since. One of the officers quietly pulled me aside before leaving.
He had a strange look on his face and asked, "Are you sure you live alone?" He nodded, but then added, "Because there were 2 mugs in your sink, and one of them was still warm."
Story 2. The cabin window. I woke up to the sound of breathing, slow, steady, and just outside the glass. The thing is, our cabin windows were on the 2nd floor. When my friends suggested a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods, I didn't hesitate. We were all in our mid-20s, stuck in boring jobs, and needed a break. The place we found was perfect, rustic but with running water and electricity, surrounded by trees so thick it felt like the world ended at the driveway. It was the middle of October, and the air was already crisp. The cabin sat on a small hill with a wraparound porch, overlooking a narrow dirt road. Inside, it was cozy 2 floors, a small kitchen, and 4 bedrooms upstairs. My room faced the front, with a big square window that gave me a nice view of the forest. The first night, nothing felt off. We cooked dinner, played board games, and drank until our laughter echoed through the trees. It wasn't until the second night that something changed. Night 2. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. to the sound of breathing. Not snoring, not wind through the trees, but the slow, deliberate inhale and exhale of someone close by. I sat up in bed, blinking into the dark. My eyes landed on the window. The moonlight was bright enough to outline the glass, but the view beyond was pitch black. The breathing was louder now. I couldn't see anything at first, so I slid out of bed, moving slowly toward the window. My hands were clammy, my pulse pounding. Then I saw it. A face, right there, just inches from the glass. The features were wrong. The eyes too wide, the skin pale like wax, the mouth slightly open as if they'd been standing there for hours, just breathing. I stumbled backward, my hand hitting the wall with a thud. The face didn't move. I ran out of my room and down the hall to my friend Megan's room, banging on her door until she opened it, half asleep and irritated. I told her what I saw. She grabbed a flashlight, and we went back to my room together. The face was gone. I tried to laugh it off over breakfast, blaming it on dreams and too much wine. But Megan pointed out something I hadn't noticed. Our bedrooms were on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony, no ladder outside. Whoever or whatever had been at my window would have needed to climb the siding to get there. We decided to keep the curtains closed, but that night I couldn't sleep. I kept listening for that breathing. Around 2:00 a.m., I heard a soft tapping, tap, tap, tap. I pulled the curtain aside just a little. The face was back. This time, the mouth was stretched into an unnatural smile, and one hand was pressed flat against the glass, fingertips leaving streaks in the condensation. I yelled for the others, and they came running. But by the time they entered my room, the figure had vanished again. We were supposed to stay until Sunday, but after that, no one was comfortable sleeping upstairs. We all dragged our mattresses down to the living room and locked every door and window. At 4:00 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy, pacing back and forth. I sat up, my eyes adjusting to the dim light, and saw movement through the living room window. Someone was standing just outside, swaying slightly as if they were trying to see in. Then, without warning, there was a loud thump upstairs. We froze. Another thump, louder this time. It was coming from my old bedroom.
How the hell did they get up there?
We didn't wait to find out. We grabbed our stuff, piled into the car, and drove away without looking back. A week later, the cabin's owner called me. She said the cleaning crew had found something in my bedroom on the inside of the glass. Handprints, dozens of them. And the streaks were from the inside. My phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. with a motion alert from my home security camera. The thumbnail showed a man's face, staring directly into the lens. The problem was, I was 300 miles away. I live alone in a small suburban house, nothing fancy, but after a break-in attempt last year, I installed a decent home security system with motion-activated cameras. They cover my driveway, front porch, and backyard, all synced to my phone. I don't normally get alerts unless it's something harmless like the neighbor's cat wandering across my yard. But 3 weeks ago, I was staying in a hotel for a work conference out of state. That night, my phone lit up on the nightstand. It was 2:17 a.m., motion detected. Front porch camera half asleep, I tapped the notification. The live feed came up, showing nothing but my porch bathed in the pale glow of the motion light. I scanned the frame, nothing. I told myself it was probably a moth flying too close to the sensor. Then I noticed the thumbnail preview of the alert, the frozen image it had captured the moment motion was detected. It wasn't empty. It showed a man's face, pressed right up against the lens, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, like he was mid-breath. His skin looked dirty, his hair stringy. I froze. If someone was that close to the camera, they'd have to be standing almost against my front door. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it could be a glitch, maybe even an old image resurfacing. But then my phone buzzed again. Motion detected, backyard camera. I switched to the live feed. This time I saw him. The same man, standing at the far end of my backyard, just beyond the motion light's reach. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, facing the camera. And then, very slowly, he raised his hand and waved. My hands were shaking as I called the police, giving them my address and explaining I was out of town but someone was on my property. They said they'd send a unit to check. While I was still on the phone, another notification came through. Motion detected, living room camera. I don't have pets. I don't have roommates. The living room camera is inside. The live feed came up, and for a split second I saw nothing. Then he walked into frame. Same clothes, same face. He looked around like he was examining the place, then walked out of view toward the hallway. The operator's voice in my ear was asking me questions, but I barely heard her. My mind was stuck on one thought. How did he get inside? 2 minutes later, I got one final alert. Motion detected. Bedroom camera. My bedroom. He was in there. He sat down on my bed, directly facing the camera, and leaned in so close, his eyes filled the frame. His mouth moved like he was whispering something, but there was no audio. Then, the feed cut to black. When the police finally arrived, they found my front door locked. No signs of forced entry. The house was empty, but the cameras were gone. Every single one. Except for the living room camera. It was lying on my bed, pointing at the pillow where my head would be. The library was empty when I closed up for the night except for the man in the far corner, who was still staring at me. I work part-time at a small-town public library. It's a quiet job, mostly checking out books and reshelving returns, but on Thursday nights I'm the closer. The library shuts down at 8 p.m., but the building is huge, 2 floors, with old creaking wood and aisles that feel endless when you're the only one left. That night was slow. Around 7:45, I started doing my usual rounds, letting patrons know we were closing soon. Most left without issue. Except one man. He was sitting in the far corner on the 2nd floor, back to the wall, a single lamp casting a circle of yellow light around him. He didn't have any books, no laptop, no phone, just sitting there, hands in his lap, eyes following me as I walked past. I told him we were closing in 15 minutes. He didn't reply. By 8:10, the place was empty, or so I thought. I locked the front doors and started turning off lights. That's when I heard it. Footsteps upstairs, slow, deliberate, coming from the direction of that far corner. I froze halfway down the main aisle, my keys in hand. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed in the empty space. No answer. I climbed the stairs, each creak sounding deafening. The upstairs lights were still on in sections, casting deep shadows between the shelves. I walked to the back corner where I'd seen him before. Empty. But then, at the end of the aisle, I saw movement just ahead, ducking back behind the shelves. I started walking toward it, my heart thudding. The closer I got, the quieter it felt, like the air itself was holding its breath. When I turned the corner, nothing. I decided to check the restrooms before leaving. On the way, I passed the basement access door, one we keep locked at all times. That's when I noticed something. It was open. Just a crack. And from the dark stairwell beyond, I heard breathing. Slow, measured. I backed away and called the police from behind the front desk. They told me to stay on the line until officers arrived. When the police searched the basement, they found signs someone had been living down there: a sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, even a small lantern, and a notebook. It was filled with pages of writing, all in neat block letters. The first page read, "She's here every Thursday. I like watching her walk home." Story 5, The Hiker in the Trees. About an hour into my solo hike, I noticed a man standing between the trees. He didn't move, not even when I waved. I hike alone a lot. It's my way of clearing my head after stressful weeks at work. There's a trail about 45 minutes from my house that winds deep into the forest. No cell service, no noise, but birds and the crunch of dirt under your boots. That Saturday morning, I parked in the gravel lot and set out early. The air was crisp, the sunlight cutting through the leaves in gold streaks. About an hour in, I rounded a bend and saw him. A man, standing about 30 yards off the trail, between two pines. He was wearing a faded gray hoodie and jeans, his hands hanging loosely at his sides. His head was tilted slightly, like he was studying me. I stopped and waved, thinking maybe he was just another hiker. He didn't wave back. I kept walking, forcing myself not to stare. When I glanced back a minute later, he was gone. I figured he'd walked deeper into the woods, but then I noticed something strange. There hadn't been any sound. No crunch of leaves, no snapping twigs. Just nothing. Another half hour passed before I saw him again. This time, he was farther ahead, still off the trail, facing me. Only now, he was closer than before, maybe 15 yards away. I could see his face this time, expressionless. Not even blinking. The air felt colder in that spot. My steps quickened. At the 3-mile mark, I stopped for water. That's when I heard it. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it came from my left, deep in the trees. My eyes scanned the undergrowth. And there he was again. Closer. Same stance. Same tilt of the head. I turned back toward the trailhead, deciding to cut my hike short. My pace picked up to a near jog. Every so often, I glanced over my shoulder. And each time, I saw him, always at the same distance, no matter how fast I walked, always just standing there, watching. When I finally reached the parking lot, my relief was short-lived. My car was the only one there. Except, it wasn't. There was another vehicle now, a rusted old sedan parked 2 spaces away. The man was sitting in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, smiling.